Hey, it's Megan. Welcome back to On Writing. If you're new here, I'm a professional writer, fiction editor, and writing coach. I've been working on a novel this month and I've learned a lot about the process, so I want to share with you the tips that I have picked up. So I decided that in 2024, I'm going to finish this novel. So January and February, I spent time outlining, and I'm going to bring you along for the ride as we complete this story and get it out in the world. Hello. So Sunny and I are here. I am embarking on something that I haven't done before, which is, I'm going to show you a little bit of what I did today. I'm going to take my own advice, first of all, and use my own process that I talk about in my videos of like starting with your turning point, starting with your premise, then figuring out your turning point, and then building it out from there, just to have the big scenes, the big beats down on paper. And then that would at least tell me, okay, for chapters 1 to 2, we're going to be doing this. For chapters 3 to 5, we're focusing on this, and this is kind of where the story needs to go at each step. So that always just really helps my brain. It's been working so far, so I'll show a little bit of what that process was like today and what my outline looked like. Here's a teeny tiny glimpse. I decided to just use an outline template. So I used Save the Cat and just left notes on what each beat is supposed to include and then which of my chapters is going to go into each one. And it's been really helpful so far. So yeah, that's where I'm at. But anyway, wish me luck. I am gonna go back to outlining now. And I basically just outlined the very high level points of my story. Some of them I knew in more detail because I had written 50,000 words of the story already. And some of them I was like, I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen here, but I know this kind of thing has to happen. Like the character should be in this place, figuring out this thing, but how that exactly looks in a scene, I don't know yet. This is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. How am I supposed to get any work done with this? That's happening right here. Unreal. I really just want to finish this outline and get it done, and I just want to start writing again. But I know that if I don't get the outline to a place where I'm like, okay, it's gonna be so easy for me to write now, then it won't be easy for me to write. And I just really don't want to have to mess with the structure of the story in revisions. I hate with a passion when you get to revising your novel and there's a plot hole that you did not realize because you didn't outline or add that detail to your outline, and then you have to go and you have to change so much of the story. No. I do not want to do that. So I have the rest of the month, 20 days to finish this outline, and that's what I'm working on. So there's my update for you today, February 9th, 8:54 a.m. Okay, it is 11:46 a.m. on February 9th. I have been going at this for about 3 hours, a little over 3 hours, and I officially have finished the first draft of my final outline. It feels really good to have all the pieces together. It's very satisfying. Now my next steps will be to just fill in details. So I'm gonna take a break and probably come back to it tomorrow to fill in the details. I can't believe that it actually came together. But just goes to show that sometimes, for me at least, it's my mind that is keeping me back from things, because I'll say to myself all day long, oh, well, it's too confusing to figure out the outline. And then, when you sit down and you just don't let yourself stop until it's done and you say to yourself, think of something, like, what's it gonna be? Come up with something. It's amazing what actually comes up. One of the things that keeps me from continuing to work on a project is this feeling of resistance and stuckness that I get when I hit a wall and I'm like, oh, I don't really know what happens there. Like, I gave myself kind of a kick in the butt and I was like, well, you're a writer, so figure it out. And honestly, I gave myself more than like 5 seconds and I figured it out. And then I was like, oh, okay. And then I hit another roadblock, toward the end of my outline, and I was like, I don't know. And it's like, well, just sit there until you figure it out. And honestly, what that taught me was sometimes I just don't give myself enough time to actually let ideas come. It's like, oh, I feel stuck, I don't know, so I'm gonna stop, because what if I can't figure anything out and then this goes nowhere and then I feel horrible? It's like, that didn't happen, so. Anyway, and another thing I learned about this was when I hit those moments where I was stuck, I said, okay, well, if you're really not sure what is supposed to happen, like go back to the craft, go back to the basics of the beat and see, okay, we know the character has to learn this or has to be in this place emotionally. So what could happen that would get them there? And so I just went back to the basics. Okay, today is Monday, February 12th, and I am back at it working on my outline, and I think it's finally in a place where I can start writing. It was a little earlier than I was expecting, but I'm happy about it. Basically, what I added to it was more detail in the later chapters, so just kind of fleshing those out a little bit more. And so I just put approximate dates for every chapter, and then there's like other things going on in the story aside from the main story. So in each chapter outline, I say, okay, this is what's the main action that's happening, and then even if none of this is being shown, I'm going to show what's happening at her house, what's happening with her friend, and what's happening with her dad. So I did that for every single chapter just to make sure I know how things are progressing and what's going on in her world outside of what we might see in each chapter, if that makes sense. Anyway, that's my progress. I'm really excited. I'm really grateful for time to work on it. So I'll show you a little bit of what it looks like, and I'll see you next time. Okay, so here's what I have for my outline. So again, I have my beats here and then the 3 parts of each chapter. And I've just gone through and added as many details as I can, and then I've put the approximate dates, and then I've put the 3 pieces that maybe are happening outside of the main action, like I was telling you before. So her friend, her dad, and what's happening at the house. And then I just went through every chapter and did that. But yeah, things that matter most are in there, so I'm pretty excited. So then I was able to finish my basic outline and I started adding details. I have gone through the writing process before where I end up with plot holes during revisions because I didn't map out the dates of all my chapters. Like, okay, even if they're not talking about what time of year it is, this is about the time span of this chapter. Going like that is something I would highly suggest, even if your characters aren't referencing the date or time, just so that you can keep track of when things are happening. So I know several of you have asked how to plot multiple point of view or a story with subplots, and so that's what I would kind of suggest to do if that's the type of story you're writing, is for each plot point, write out, okay, what's happening with my other points of view? What's happening with my subplots? Even if it's not shown, keeping that in your outline can be really helpful. Today's Thursday, February 15th, and I have been working on my novel for a couple days now. I have found it difficult to write. It doesn't flow as nicely or easily as I would hope that it would, but it's also the first time I've worked on a novel in a long time. So I kind of feel like I'm warming up my muscles again, if that makes sense. Anywho, that is my update for today. Just about an hour of writing time this morning, and hopefully we can keep that up until this thing is finished. Wish me luck. Earlier than I was expecting, I finished my outline and I was able to start writing. And when I tell you that writing has been so much easier with this detailed outline, I knew it would be, because I talk about it all the time on this channel, and I've done it before, although I haven't created an outline that's this detailed. But it was just sort of like, oh my gosh, maybe I don't know exactly how the scene's gonna unfold, but I know what needs to be there. So it's like, if I get stuck, I can go, okay, let me look back at my outline notes, which I have right above the chapter, and I'm like, okay, well, it's this time. This needs to happen. She's going from here to there, so how can we make that interesting? And when I tell you, it's just been a joy to write. If you're wondering how to outline, watch my outline videos. They'll get you started. We can talk about it. Trust me. Okay, it is Thursday, February 22nd, and I am working on the novel again. I just finished chapter 4, which I think will be my catalyst chapter. So it was really nice to kind of reach that milestone where it's the first big beat of the story. I've been trying really hard to make each of the chapters have an arc of some sort so that it isn't just one pace or monotone when you read it, but that it has rises and falls and there's some energy to it. Early chapters, I always feel like you're just trying to introduce your characters to your reader and make them care. And so it feels sort of like, I just want to get through these chapters and get to the catalyst and the more interesting stuff, but they're really necessary. Today, I'm hoping to finish chapter 5, and that's basically 20% of the novel. So I just have to do that 4 more times and I'll be done. But anyway, I have a call with a client at 11:30, so I am gonna go and continue working on chapter 5. But until next time, I'm gonna keep at it. And then the last thing that I learned in this past month of writing is that having a structured and detailed outline doesn't mean that I'm not discovering anything as I write. So I often find that people fall into two camps, right? They're either pantsers or they're plotters. They like to write by discovering the story, or they like to outline. But a lot of people don't really think that both can happen together. But what I've found in this story so far as I've been writing is the outline is my guide, and it keeps me on track and it keeps things organized. But then it's still up to me to figure out how everything exactly unfolds. So if I'm like, oh, my character needs to get from A to B, and there needs to be like a rising action, a climax, and then a denouement each chapter, how is that going to work? So as I'm writing each scene, I'm discovering the story still, but I just have a framework that helps me know where it's going and where it's already come from and everything that needs to be in the scene. And it still feels very creative. It's just not chaotic. It's creative, not chaotic. That's what I'll say. So I highly recommend. My goal is to finish writing the novel by May and then spend the summer doing revisions. I'm bringing you guys along because I want you to see the process. You know, we talk about the process, but let's see it in action. And also keep myself accountable as I'm endeavoring to finish this novel. So I'm really appreciative of your support and encouragement and for coming along on this writing journey with me as we seek to get better at the craft. And I hope this was helpful for you, and I will see you next time. Take care.